Hello, nonprofit rock stars and heroes. This is Tom Check with Greater Impact Consulting, where we help you streamline your Salesforce for your nonprofit so that you can focus on the impact that you're having in the community instead of your database. Today, we're talking about something that is a really common scenario, especially in our small nonprofits, and that is when a user, maybe who created a bunch of records in our Salesforce, leaves our organization and their Salesforce user becomes inactive. What happens often is that we then down the road try and edit some of these contacts or opportunities that are owned by that inactive user. And we get weird error messages saying that we can't do that because the owner of this record is inactive. And we have to go in and manually say, hey, okay, transfer this account owner to me or to whoever on our staff needs to own these. And that gets really cumbersome if we have to do that one by one every time we run into an error. Thankfully, Salesforce has designed a tool that allows us to do it better. And that tool is called the Mass Transfer Records tool. And today we're going to walk through the basics of how to use it. It's very quick, it's very easy to use. So let's go ahead and start sharing my screen. If you go into Setup and you just search for Mass Transfer, you'll see that it is one of the options that shows up, Mass Transfer Records. That's what we are trying to transfer here. And when I click on this, it does take me to a screen where I get to select what type of records I'm going to be transferring. The important thing to know about this is that this is based on what's called child-master relationships. And all that means is that you won't see some object types in here. Specifically, I'm thinking of a lot of us are going to be looking to transfer contacts, right? But unfortunately, contacts are not in here because they are a child of, I believe, households. And so if we open up households, we would maybe get to transfer our contacts. If we open up our accounts, you'll see that because our opportunities are child records of accounts, if we want to transfer opportunities, we do that through here. From this window, the first thing we need to do is we need to identify who owns the records that we're trying to transfer. This would be your inactive user. Whether this is the consultant that you hired and no longer works with you, the intern that did a bunch of data entry for you, or perhaps the executive director that has moved on to another organization, this is the user that is inactive. If I click Find, what I should see is a bunch of records that show up that this user, Tom Check, owns. Now, full disclosure, this is a demonstration org, and I've only got one user in here, so I'm not going to be able to show you the full breadth of how this works because I can't transfer records from me to me very easily. But here's what I do is I type in who I'm transferring from, any criteria that I need to match for this move. So if I've got certain records that I want to go to one person, but other records that go to another person, I want to make sure that I transfer only the ones that fit a specific criteria. Most of the time, though, we're going to be transferring all the records from that intern, that consultant, that ex officio director, in order to make sure that all of those records get moved to the right person. Normally, I would fill in this transfer to box, and then once I find these, what I will probably find is that there's a lot of them, and this screen displays 250. That's as many as you can transfer in one button click. So what I do is I go ahead and I click this little button here to select all 250, and then I hit transfer. And what will happen is it'll take a minute, so don't click again because that'll mess things up. And after a minute or two, what you should see is that the page refreshes automatically, but now these 250 are no longer in it. And instead of starting with A's, in this case it would start somewhere down in the J's or K's. And then I would again select that box to select all the records that are on the screen. I would hit transfer again, and I would wait a couple minutes in order for that one to finish. It's pretty straightforward, right? And so what you can do here is you can go through and identify all the different records and all the different types of records that you need to transfer from that inactive user over to your new users. How do you make sure you're doing the right ones? Well, you have to know your Salesforce kind of well as far as what type of objects you're using. If your organization does not use leads, for instance, then transferring leads isn't going to be something you need to worry about. If you don't use levels, or you're the only one who's ever created a level and you're not having trouble with those, you probably don't need to go through and transfer levels. But you will need to transfer households, accounts. Those are the biggest ones you're going to want to make sure you transfer. Possibly GAUs if you're using GAUs. And then the rest of this is going to be really dependent on your setup. So if you're using program management module, you're probably going to want to transfer programs, program cohorts, program engagements, as well as all of the service options, since those are all part of the program management module. If you don't use program management module, and if you don't have it installed in your org, you might not even see these options in there. If you're using the MailChimp plugin, you'll see that we've got these MailChimp plugin things here, but at the end of the day, you probably don't need to transfer those to a new user, like I said, unless you're having issues. So the big ones for most of us are going to be households, accounts, and then the child data that goes along with those. Once you've done those, check in and see if you need to transfer anything else. You might still have some manual objects, especially if you've got custom objects in your org that you want to transfer. You'll still have to do those more manually, but this gives you a big chunk of the work done very quickly. And in another video, we'll talk about how to manually transfer bulk data so that you don't have to go in and do it manually on those records where it doesn't quite work from this tool. So that's all I've got for you today. I hope that's useful. And until next time, let me know if you have any questions or challenges in using this, and keep having an awesome impact in the communities that you serve. Thanks so much.